The following is an instructional video covering running a technical audit utilizing an enterprise-capable software called DeepCrawl. The purpose of utilizing this tactic is to clear a website of any technical issues spanning over 200 different areas that may inhibit a visitor's ability to take a desired action. Also, we found by removing these technical occurrences from our clients' websites that they may receive a boost in ranking and traffic depending on the severity of the issues fixed. I do not remember where I was first introduced to this tactic. However, I have received influence and inspiration by the following brilliant individuals or companies who speak in depth on this subject: DeepCrawl, Screaming Frog, and Nathan Gotch. Thank you to those mentioned. I'm incredibly grateful. This is the Convert 4 stream on digital marketing, building efficient systems, and growing websites' visibility. If you enjoy it, subscribe on YouTube, give it a thumbs up, or simply just connect with me on Facebook at Matthew, spelled with one T, Bojerski, Bojerski. Let us get started. So here's the main site of DeepCrawl. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of what the tool is about, what it does, and kind of how it works. If you're familiar with Screaming Frog at all, which I've gone over in a previous video, it's a crawl-based software that crawls a website and collects information based off of whatever parameters you select within the crawl. And by doing so, you're dramatically accelerating the rate at which you can analyze pages in bulk and identify potential issues and correlations. Now, the problem with running a regular crawl with enterprise level websites is because you're dealing with pages at a mass scale, sometimes in the tens or hundreds of thousands of pages, more than likely you're going to have tens of thousands of issues because these issues span across several pages. For an example, if you have one issue across all of your product detail page templates and you have 100,000 products, it's going to show 100,000 issues. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be a viable solution to go into each of these 100,000 pages and fix one issue per page. It's just not an efficient use of your time. And that is why these tools were created. And that is why when we are doing an enterprise level audit, we're looking for these correlations and how to fix these at a dynamic and scalable solution. Now, some of the things that DeepCrawl does is multi-domain monitoring. You can set up custom dashboards, so they have API integration. They have a great team of technical experts on staff if you need to reach out. And overall, I'm just a big fan of their product. So it's one of the tools that we use here to keep our clients' websites free from technical issues and bugs that may hinder their rankings. So getting into the actual product, I did run a crawl here for a project we've been working on. And this is what we're going to be using for today's example. So here's what the dashboard looks like. You can tell they put a lot of thought and interest and just really listen to their community as to what we look for as technical SEOs. If you look at what Screaming Frog looks like, that's kind of well formatted, if you will, very basic, no dashboards, no summaries. You really have to know what you're doing to sort this type of information, whereas I think DeepCrawl is a little more user-friendly and more intuitive. So pulling this back up, another function that I like about DeepCrawl is they have a history log of changes. So if you run, let's say, a crawl back in March, this month it's May the 7th, but if we ran a crawl back in March, and then we'll get a list of all of the status of the site, pretty much of all of the pages. And if we make some changes, we run a crawl back in April, a month later, it'll actually show us a difference in the changes that were made. So this is incredibly useful when you're tracking changes made technically to the site, or if you're adding a bunch of new pages or products. It's important to kind of keep an ongoing inventory of what's going on because things can get out of hand pretty fast. And you never know, one small change on an enterprise site can tank your traffic. So always want to be aware of what's going on there. So going through the kind of dashboard here that we use, this issues panel is super helpful. So this summarizes the most common issues that DeepCrawl has found within the site, and it kind of buckets them into these known changes. And this isn't specific per niche or per domain. They kind of bucket all of these changes at a package level. So although DeepCrawl does an amazing job at summarizing these issues, it doesn't do all of the work for you. You still need a technical SEO, you still need someone with a technical background to go through here and actually figure out why these issues are occurring. So some of the things that have shown up here, we have max HTML size. So there are 48,000 pages over a recommended max HTML size. There are 91,000 canonicalized pages that are also no indexed. So that's an issue because a canonical URL basically signals to search engines that you prefer a certain URL over the one that's being read. And if these pages are also no indexed, it's sending mixed signals to Google saying basically, we don't want you to index this page, but we also prefer another URL. So it doesn't really make much sense. So we'll need to make some adjustments there. Max fetch time. So when Google crawls and fetches the page, if it's over a certain amount, I believe it's 2 seconds, yes, then it's going to flag that here. This could be due to a plethora of different reasons we'll have to dive into. Thin pages, these occur from content. You can set certain parameters, so we can basically run a custom crawl and determine parameters for each of these values. So let's say for thin pages, we decide any page with less than 300 words within the paragraph body should be recorded here as thin pages. And that's going to be flagged, so you can get pretty customized with it. Just to summarize, Google doesn't like thin pages most of the time, because it's considered thin content and it's considered a thin answer, or it's not a thorough answer. It's not likely to provide use to any type of user. So we try to avoid having thin pages on our websites. Pages with duplicate body. Having duplicate body text is a big no-no. There is an algorithm called Panda that checks for content quality and content assurance. Any duplicate content could be flagged within there. And they don't really hand out too many Panda penalties these days because duplicate content isn't abused like it used to. But having duplicate content on your website surely isn't helping you. So there are 34 there. Duplicate pages, this counts, I believe. And these also have little tulips. So this one basically states that anything with identical title, description, or near identical content will be considered a duplicate page. Duplicate page titles, pretty self-explanatory why that's not a good thing to have. Google looks at, I think, 3 things based on our testing that is most important to them in evaluating what a page is about. That's the title, the URL, and the H1s or headings of the page. So when you have duplicate values there, you're essentially telling Google that you've written on the same topic several times, and that confuses the search engine because they're not sure which version to serve to its users, and most of the time it doesn't serve either of them. Duplicate title sets, again, title tags which are duplicate, not good. Duplicate body sets. Pages without a valid canonical tag, that's not good because we're not showing Google the preferred URL for these. This happens very often with large-scale enterprise e-commerce sites. And another thing that also bleeds into is crawl budget, which once you get to a certain threshold of pages, Google starts stifling the amount of crawl that it allows to, I guess, crawl your website. And by doing that, your pages are going to be crawled less frequently. So when you make updates, they're going to be read less frequently by Google, and therefore your results are going to be delayed. And sometimes your pages won't even be crawled and they won't even be indexed, which obviously isn't helping you gain any rankable positions. So that's something to really keep an eye on. Pages with duplicate descriptions, we kind of went over that, a little bit redundant. Duplicate page sets, again, broken pages. These are very important to cover. Through our testing, we haven't found that fixing pages with broken backlinks really all helps that much. For an example, we ran an experiment just over 8 months ago now on one of our enterprise sites in our portfolio, and we nearly fixed over I think it was like 4,000 pages that were broken. There were 40,000, tens of thousands of backlinks essentially that were corrected, and we didn't see a ranking improvement from that. So there could be something there that shows the longer amount of time that a page is broken, the less and less valuable the links that were going to those pages are deemed relevant with Google. That could be a possibility. It could also be a possibility that many of these backlinks that were going to these broken pages that we fixed are no longer being crawled, and therefore they're no longer relevant. Or maybe the last time Google did crawl them, it recognized that they're broken and removed them from its value index. There's a lot of potential variables there that we need to look into possibly ruling out before making any conclusions. And that's just something we practice as a policy. We rarely ever say one thing is and one thing isn't unless we've tested it and we know for sure in an isolated environment our data was clean and we've proven that one thing is valid with Google and SEO. That's our policy. So this happens often where we have different types of variables in these issues that we need to test further in order to draw conclusions. Broken links, pretty obvious why we don't want that existing on the website. Dead pages, if a user heads to a dead page, they're going to more than likely leave your site, which increases your bounce rate, which sends signals to Google that you're not answering your searchers' questions, which will tank your rankings. Duplicate description sets, we went over that. Missing H1 tags, we've found more often than not now, H1 tags aren't such a big deal. We do like to optimize them, but we haven't found a correlation in having an H1 tag and not having an H1 tag to rankings. We find it's sufficient enough to have an H2 doing just about the same thing, including your target keyword in that. But we want to make sure that the site is consistent anyway, so we'll look into the H1 tags. Non-indexable pages with backlinks. That's obviously a big no-no because if you have backlinks, again, backlinks are hard to get on their own. I mean, acquiring them through outreach is difficult. You have to establish relationships. It's a cold email. You have to pique interest. You have to provide value. Most of the time, someone's going to ask for a monetary exchange for a backlink, and a good backlink can cost hundreds of dollars. Most backlinks cost hundreds of dollars. It's not an inexpensive feat. I mean, unless you have really good connections and you're doing a lot of favors, link building is very expensive. So for having pages with backlinks that are non-indexable, that's basically having a raincoat. It's raining outside and you go outside without your raincoat. It doesn't really make much sense. So you're going to want to avoid that as much as possible. So we'll fix these with 301 redirects. And talking about that, when you do find a page that is non-indexable, you either need to figure out why it's non-indexable. So maybe it's in your robots.txt, maybe it's blocking, maybe you have a no index tag on the page, maybe Google just hasn't found the page, or it's an orphan page, which means it's nowhere linked within the site. Regardless of what it is, you're going to want to figure out how to index this page. If you can't index it, find a suitable 301 redirect to an index page. That's the next best option. So and make sure the pages are directly relevant. You don't want to have a non-indexable page on sandals, let's say, and if you can't index it, you don't want to redirect it to a page that's about walking shoes. Google's going to know the difference. The backlinks aren't going to match up, and you're not going to have any value from that redirect. We've tested this. We know this for certain. The products have to be identical. The topics of the page need to be so close that Google wouldn't be able to tell the difference, or a user wouldn't be able to tell the difference. That's the level that we have to play at now. So just make sure that when you do redirect these pages, that their intent is almost identical. You want to get as close as possible where it's almost indistinguishable. Short descriptions, these aren't so much of a big deal when your meta description is too short. It's all about getting the click. I don't really care if my description is 160 characters or if it's 50. As long as I'm getting the click and my click-through rate is improved from where it was, we're more than likely going to move up in the search results. So that's all I care about. Disallowed URLs, same thing as non-indexable pages. You're going to want to figure out why these URLs are disallowed. Max links as well. You don't want too many links or outbound links per page. That's going to cause issues. It's going to delete your authority of your pages. It's going to devalue your site's authority when you're linking out to other pages. So you don't want too many links going out from your pages. Short titles, don't really care too much about. Max mobile description length. This is important because on mobile devices and desktop now, Google doesn't look at character limits in the title and descriptions anymore. They look at it's a pixel width. So if we search for walking shoes, this description here, this is a pixel width. So Google doesn't count this as a character width anymore. Same thing with the title here. They have a pixel width for their search results pages, sort of like how you would see on a website, which is a change they made not that long ago. So you want to make sure that your mobile descriptions are fitting well within the search results page. Like you can see here, they did this on purpose, this click or little clickbait. Let me find one that's succeeding. Actually, you know what? I don't think they did do that on purpose. So let's pull up this page as an example. I'm going to pull up Zappos. So it's basically going to this click option. So I'm pulling up the page. I'm going to look at their meta description. Yeah, so you can see here their meta description over here. Their meta description over here is saying free shipping both ways on walking shoes from our vast selection of styles, fast delivery, and 24/7, 365 real person service with a smile. Click or. So if we go back to the search results page, this click or, that's where it's cutting off. So if we go to word counter and we just copy this, it's about 146 characters right here before it cuts off. And what's interesting is if we copy this whole thing, just over 165. So yeah, so right here at 146, it's starting to cut off. So that's something we're going to want to take note of. This one looks like it might be over 146. Yeah, this is 168. So you can see that Google, it could be 168 characters, it could be 146. I think this one's cutting off because of this right here is all bunched together. It's like 19 characters and 13 characters all bunched together. So I think it's cutting off because the phone number there, but this is something that you're going to want to test. Once you upload your meta descriptions, you're going to want to test and make sure that they're not getting cut off because typically the last little snippet you have here in your meta description, that's your CTA in most cases, and that's what's going to convince people to take action. Like for example, this meta description is very good. Women's walking shoes. Shop women's walking shoes at DSW. Check out our huge selection. So they're talking about quantity. Free shipping every day. So free shipping every day, that's a good thing to end with. That's the last thing someone's going to read before they click through. But I also like this, free shipping both ways. So they talk about shipping a lot. Real in-person service. So they have a lot of value to their meta description here. It just cuts off. So that's an example of that. You don't want your mobile descriptions cutting off or desktop descriptions cutting off. Some of these other ones, same thing with max title length. That would actually See if I can find a sample here. Yep, max data length. You'll see these dot, dot, dot right here. Kind of cuts off. It's not good. Broken sitemap links. That means your sitemap's outdated. Google crawls your sitemap to basically identify what pages your site has and how it should, or how that information is organized. So having broken sitemap links is not good. You're just kind of wasting Google's crawl budget on that. Disallowed malformed URLs in sitemaps. Again, you want your sitemaps super clean. There's a lot of argument as to whether sitemaps even matter anymore, but why not? If it's not working, you might as well fix it. Non-indexable URLs in sitemap, obviously that's a bad thing. If you have pages that are no indexed, why would you put them in your sitemap for Google to crawl and to evaluate for index? Doesn't make much sense. So we want to remove that. And then HTTP page, a page that is not secure. So that's a summary of all the issues. I hope you guys were able to keep up with that. I know I breezed through it quite quickly. The next step of this process, I'm going to get into another video, but essentially what we would do next from here is dive into each of these individual issues and find out, one, why they're occurring, two, if they're occurring by different methods. So occasionally we'll find, for an example, the pages with duplicate body could be occurring from several different angles. So maybe 10 of these pages are occurring from PLP pages, 10 are occurring from PDP pages, 10 are occurring from articles, and 4 are occurring from, let's just say, forum comments, something like that. So we want to find all of the occurrences and provide a suggested solution to each occurrence. So just because there's one issue here or 29 issues, that doesn't mean that there's 29 solutions. There could be, there's really no way to tell from this dashboard how many solutions we're going to need. Sometimes it's fewer, sometimes it's in the hundreds. It just depends upon how clean the technical environment is of this website that we're working on. So that's something we dive into further with this strategy. We basically want to provide development with the resources and know-how to fix these issues. And our second priority would be identifying how the issue was originally created, because it's one thing to fix an issue, but to reoccurringly have this issue occur because of a broken process, it doesn't really make much sense. We don't believe in we don't believe in billing for that type of work, and it's quite frankly it's not satisfying. Patching a broken tire or patching a dead tire, or what is the saying? Pushing a dead horse through the finish line. It just doesn't make much sense. So we always try to find the origination of the issue and fix it at the source. That way it won't occur again, and we won't have to do it twice. And our client's going to be happier, the website's going to be happier, and we'll continually move on in an upwards environment, and an upwards stabilization to build, a stabilized environment to build. Because remember, everything about SEO is about your foundation. If you don't have a good foundation, things just aren't going to work out. If you think of it like a house, a cracked foundation, it's dramatically going to reduce the resale value. There's going to be safety issues in the case of a disaster, like a Google update. The house could fall apart, and there's all these other things that could occur out of that. So that's one thing we try to avoid. So try to keep that in mind when you're doing a technical audit. Don't be afraid to dig too deep, because sometimes that's necessary. And as always, think before you take action. Really plan out what your objective is before doing a technical audit, what you want to accomplish out of it, what are some of the things that you're looking for and are suspicious of. And when you think you found a solution, always ask yourself, could there be other reasons why this is occurring? And feel free to explore. So that's all I got for today for this technical overview using a enterprise level software called DeepCrawl. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I can help you out with. Let me know. I'd be glad to cover it in a video. And again, this is the Convert4 stream on digital marketing, building efficient systems and growing websites visibility. If you enjoy it, subscribe on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up or simply connect with me on Facebook at Matthew, spelled with one T, Bojerski, Bojerski. Thanks, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.